Hi, welcome to Cloud Cover. My name is Steve Marks.
And I'm Nate Totten.
And I'm disappointed that you did not get a bald cap and pretend to be Wade.
I know, I looked, the Halloween shops
They weren't open
yet.
It's a little bit
It's a bit early for Halloween.
We've got a great show as always. Really, every show is solid gold on the Cloud Cover show. Yeah. We're going to talk about the brand new Windows Azure Accelerator for web applications.
For web roles.
Web roles.
Service right. Pack 1.
It's wow.
Wow roles.
Yeah. Something like that. So we're going to talk about that Accelerator, which makes it easy to deploy stuff really fast and multiple sites. It seems like pretty much like 50% of the time you're on this show, you're talking about that thing. Like,
yeah, well, we
get
mentioned
a new thing to talk about.
No, I only work on that.
Okay, and we'll have some sort of tip of the week at the end of the show. We're making faces at each other because we still haven't thought of what that is.
We'll think of it.
But we've got plenty of time to do that. And we'll start off with some news. We've got a post from Neil McKenzie, which we should have mentioned in the news last week, and that's why we're mentioning it now, because it's a very good introduction to the Windows Azure App Fabric applications, which we covered last week. Neil pretty much every time there's a new feature writes like the blog post about sort of understanding it, and this is the one I think for the App Fabric application. So check that out. Good deal.
All right, and we have this guy.
Yeah, and this relates to last time you were on the show, actually, because you have a Codeplex project that makes it easy to use the CDN from your ASP.NET MVC app.
Yep.
This post is from Sean Sikoria. I know his name's Sean. I haven't heard his last name. Anyway, from Sean C. We're just going to call him. That sounds like one word, like Chauncey. Like his name is Chauncey. All right. From Chauncey, we've got we basically have tips about using the CDN that are sort of lessons that you also had to independently learn.
Yeah, and I think
you
more.
Did this.
Yeah.
But things about like don't use this setting on the output cache because it doesn't actually set the right header or whatever, so the CDN will never cache anything. Like all the stuff that you really want to avoid. This basically says what's the right thing to do to make sure the headers are what you want them to be. How do you check it out using Fiddler and make sure that they're there? Just good tips if you're using the CDN on top of a web app. Make sure that you check this out and set all the headers the right way, etc.
And I'll probably have to go update my CDN helpers.
Right, now that you find out that really...
that I've done it completely wrong.
It forces no caching of anything. And,
and it's very expensive, but it doesn't do anything.
Right.
And this guy.
This thing, Marketplace, which has been around, but it hasn't been discussed a lot and hasn't gotten a lot of attention. But it's been there, and the Windows Azure Marketplace has been around for... for data. I mean, there's the sort of data market stuff. And also for people who have like services and tools that make developing with Windows Azure easier. So there's the Paraleap Technologies who does the Azure Watch thing, like they were in the marketplace and whatever. There were some sort of things you could use in the marketplace, but what's new now is finished applications, so just apps that you can just buy off the shelf and use, including some apps from your former company, Thuzy, which we stole Nate from to get him over here at Microsoft.
But yeah, the nice thing about this is that, I mean, so if you're an app developer, you can deploy your app to this marketplace, and Microsoft handles the billing. We handle the credit card transactions, so you don't need to worry about the complications of, actually writing a payment system or integrating with a payment gateway. So I think it'll be nice for Azure developers to
I think we should put like the apathy button maybe. I'm trying to think of what like cloud cover apps we've written, that we can monetize. Maybe Wade's Funky Fresh Beat.cloudapp.net. Don't know if people remember that.
Just 99 cents just to see it.
Yeah, just for the glory of. I actually did convert it to a phone app, so I should list that in the marketplace and just have people buy that.
Yeah.
For 99 cents. Biggest ripoff ever. Yeah. So anyway, so this is good. So people who are building apps that they could sell to other people or that they could give subscriptions to or whatever should consider this as a way to get more people to see the app and easier time for people to buy the app and do that. And this pretty much brings us to our feature, because this last bit of news is really that smooth segue we like to make into the feature.
Yep.
Because this is the announcement that went out on the Windows Azure blog about your new accelerator,
Yep.
the WAR.
Yep. WAA for web roles.
You have to make sure that people hear both A's and the W that follows. Like, you can't just say like WAR. Like, it's like WAR. That's the proper pronunciation. I feel like Bob's gonna do something scary, like
that
me
I
just
hope
go
that lasts
wow,
for 30 minutes.
Yeah, like I feel that was not a smart thing for me to do. Bob, have mercy.
No, make it awful.
Don't. All right, do whatever's best for the show. I'm egoless. I'm here for the show. So anyway, so what is this Windows Azure Accelerator for web roles?
Yeah.
What does it do? I assume it's available for $500 from the Windows Azure
On the
Marketplace.
yeah.
Okay.
And on Codeplex. So, if you pay for it, great. No. That goes right to my bank account.
Yep.
No. So yeah, it's called the Windows Azure Accelerator for web roles, and basically what it is it's a package app that you upload to web roles in Azure, which allows you to then deploy MVC, web forms, whatever websites to your Azure roles using web deploy, which, as you know, that already sort of exists in the SDK as it is. However, the difference is with this accelerator, you can actually deploy to multiple instances. So, like what's available in the SDK, when you that's actually only available for deploying to a single instance, and it really only is for testing purposes.
Right. And it doesn't persist. If you
Yep.
like reimage that role instance, you'll just lose whatever you deployed.
Yep.
This is like a for real. It's backed by durable storage.
Yep.
It's the same thing on every instance. If you add an instance, it'll have all the sites that you've set up. If you reimage everything, or like stop the deployment and delete it and then redeploy, as long as you're using the same storage account and whatever, all your
Yep.
stuff is safe and all of it is, all the instances are always going to run the same thing.
Yep.
So this is sort of the durable scale out version of being able to use web deploy, which is cool because people have wanted that.
Yeah, yep. So like you said, it uses table storage to sort of store the IIS configuration, your certificates, your bindings, and everything. And then it actually stores your web deploy packages in blob storage. So then, like you said, it handles the role lifecycle events if they get reimaged or moved or whatever. So yeah, it's pretty nice. I think it makes it, especially if you're a developer who wants to deploy 3 or 4 different sites on a single set of roles. Say you have smaller sites that don't necessarily need 2 instances themselves. This allows you to actually, sort of save money and also scale out in a different. Like with any Windows Azure web role, you can scale out on instances while it's running in case you need to increase capacity. So yeah, that is, we're going to demo that. That's available on webroles.codeplex.com
Okay.
for download in V1. Full docs, full source, everything's available. So yeah.
Yeah, this isn't like one of my Codeplex projects where like, well, there's a download and good luck to you.
This is not the smart. This is not the smarts role.
This is as actual. There's even like there's a video somewhere, right? There's like even a.
Yeah, I recorded a quick getting started screencast and.
So you can just stop watching Cloud Cover right now and go watch that video instead, if you want.
If you want, yeah.
It's probably better.
Yeah. Oh, and we have 7 people following the project, so and 115
downloads already.
That's pretty good for a couple hours, 10 hours, or
because this is because we do time travel on the show.
Yes.
We do this live, but from the past.
Yeah.
That's actually how that works.
By Friday, this will be well over 1 million downloads.
So by the time you watch this, it's definitely 1 million. I'll set up a script. We'll get that number right up.
Put a few worker roles.
We'll scale it out.
Sounds
we'll do
great.
sort of load testing against
Sounds
Codeplex. So good. So let's see the demo.
All right.
Does it work? I don't believe it works until I see it.
It does work.
No.
So what we give you here is a new project template. All right. New project template called Windows Azure Web Deploy Host. So.
Or wowed.
Wow. So basically we have this project template, and it has a wizard to get set up. So it asks you for your storage account, Windows Web Roles, and your account key. which I just remembered as I was doing this that I put this same account key in the webcast that's been up for a day. So if anyone's been, needing a free Azure storage account, then there they go. I'm probably going to change it after the show, hopefully.
I've uploaded a few DVDs.
Yeah. That's good. So set your storage account, click next. And then we're going to set, and actually one thing to note, you can't use local storage. We in some of it, for people who are familiar with our previous accelerators or toolkits, often there was an option to use local storage. We didn't include that option because it doesn't really make sense, because with this accelerator, there's really nothing you can do locally for it. So we just remove that option and say, you have to use a real storage account. So, and then you put your username and password, and this is your username and password you will use for your, we actually have a web admin portal where you can add, create IIS web apps and things like that. So this is your username and password for that.
Did you just type password as your password?
I typed test123.
Oh, that's way better.
Yeah, so that's very secure. And click OK, and then what we're going to get is the full, basically ready to go project, source code and everything.
And for the most part, I don't care about any of this source code, right?
Not really. Yeah, the source is available if you want to extend it or add. I'll show you. We've got some logging and stuff in there, which maybe people want to extend and customize. But for the most part, this is ready to go. You actually don't need to do anything besides that wizard. And so we have this project. This is our web, we've got our web project, and this is an MVC3 app. And then we've got our cloud project. And someone actually asked me, our app that actually does the hosting is an MVC3 app, but that doesn't mean you can only use MVC apps on there. You can do a web deploy with, web forms, or actually even if you set a startup task and install PHP, you could actually even do a web deploy with a PHP app as well. So so it sort of supports anything that you can deploy with web deploy, you can deploy to this accelerator. So again, we don't need to touch the code. Click publish. We need to set our credentials.
Yeah, and this is just what you have to do to go deploy.
Yeah, this is a standard deploy to Windows Azure, and so we're going to select our storage account. And then the one thing we have to do is we have to enable remote desktop. So this is actually the remote desktop port and credentials are the same port and credentials we will use for web deploy. So so we have to enable web deploy, or excuse me, we have to enable remote desktop. Otherwise, we'll be out of luck. And then we'll set a username and password.
Yeah, this is how the web deploy that's sort of baked in also works, right?
Yep. Yeah, we tried not to do things too differently. We wanted to support sort of the standard way of doing things, but.
I do this too. You're about to change this to 2012, right?
Yeah. So this accelerator, you're not going to redeploy that often. You're gonna, you'll redeploy, say, your site that's running on this accelerator often, but this web accelerator, you're really going to deploy once and leave up for a long period of time. So you want to make sure your account lasts for quite a while. Just because you said 2012, I wanted to one-up you and go to 2013.
I noticed that you wouldn't just leave it there.
So
I do that all the time. Everything I deploy now, I just change you can change it later. I mean, even while it's running, you can go reconfigure that works. The remote desktop plugin and whatever will see the config change, and so I've done that when I try to log in and it's like your credentials have expired. You can actually just change the config do sort of a config only change and then log in again, but it's still sort of a pain. It's nicer to just do that, but
cool.
Great.
So then the other thing to note here is you don't want to enable web deploy in this, which is kind of counterintuitive. So what the problem with this is this will only let you deploy if you have one instance, and by default this package has 2 extra small instances. You can obviously change that to however many you want, but if you enable this, you'll get a warning that says you can only use one instance and it won't let you deploy.
Right.
So
because that's the sort of built-in web deploy that's just for testing against single instance.
Yep.
We're doing something different.
Yep. Yeah, we're doing it.
It's confusing, but makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. So then you would click OK, and again, we're not going to wait for the whole. I have an instance already running, so click OK. Goes through the deployment process, which should take, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? No.
Yeah, something like that.
No, 15 minutes or so, and then So once we have that deployed, we are going to go to our web interface. web roles. cloudapp.net. And so this is the web interface of the Accelerator. This is running in the app that we actually just deployed. We're going to log in with that username and password we set during the configuration wizard, not during the not the remote desktop password. There,
Right.
Like
This was the first
I made
set.
them the same in mine. I test 1, 2, 3, but in reality they should probably be different.
So everyone right now, go to WAA-webroles.cloudup.net, put in admin and test 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
and then party on.
yeah, probably change that soon enough.
Probably
Before
not.
Friday,
Come on.
yeah, before,
You won't remember.
There'll be 200
Yeah,
sites running in
exactly.
there.
I did that once. I did a demo where I had CouchDB running and like just had it party mode, like so anyone could just log in and create databases and stuff. And yeah, there was like there was a list going.
Nice. It's kind of interesting. You can see everyone's data.
Yeah.
Then.
See what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. So log in here. And okay, this is actually, let me just delete these. I had 2 other sites in this instance before, but let's start fresh. So this is what you'll see the first time you log in. It'll say there are no sites configured. You need to configure a website. So new website, let's call it test 1. And basically everything the same. You can set your bindings just like you would in IIS, and then you set your host name, host header, and we'll use example.com. And you can also add an SSL certificate, so this will support SSL. You can upload a certificate. Obviously, you can only have one. Since you only have one IP address, you can only have one certificate for the server. So either a wild card or just So create the site, and then click on this little I to get the status. So right now we see that what happened is we actually set that configuration. It stored that configuration information in table storage, and now the synchronization process on both instances, we have 2 instances running, are looking for table storage to actually see if there are any new sites that it doesn't have. Let's refresh. And we see now that we have both instances, 0 and 1, have created that website.
So now, if I went to those machines right now and open up iNet Manager, I would see a new website bound to example.com, pointing at an empty directory or something, right? There's there's nothing, we haven't actually pushed any content up yet.
So I removed my host header. Okay, let's.
Right. Now we have to make example.com actually go to that IP address.
So
which means
I thought I
edit
had
the
a host header, but we'll go ahead and do that real quick. Oops.
System32, right? Yep. System32 drivers. Why is it under drivers? Doesn't that seem weird?
Yeah.
I've never understood what it has to do with drivers.
A decision made many, many years ago. Okay, so what? Okay.
Oh, you do have it. What happened?
I don't know. It's a good question. Okay. Well, let's.
Could be.
Hang on. We'll fix this. I have another option. We will use add binding. This is another demo, so we can add a second binding, and I actually have test1.ntotten.com mapped with a CNAME to this site. So
that'll definitely work. I suspect what's going. We don't have to try to figure it out, but just to add to the confusion or to maybe alleviate it, I suspect it's proxy settings, and I suspect it's our corporate network that you're sending to the proxy. I want to go to example.com where this host thing doesn't take effect, and so you probably just need sort of an exception in the IE settings, whatever. Anyway. It doesn't really matter because we have one that's going to work, right? But the normal thing you'll need to do this anyway, right? As you're deploying, you'll need an actual domain name that's mapped to this thing for your actual users to do this. It's only in testing that you might use something like the hosts file to sort of trick this thing. And we've talked about that before on the show when we've talked about multiple websites.
Yeah, and so one thing to note, if you use example, if you use your domain name, you're going to have to obviously point it, it's an A record, you have to point it to your IP address. And your IP address, because you're not redeploying the actual Accelerator, it's going to stay the same. So you should be pretty much safe with keeping that IP address. For this, for test1.ntotten.com, I actually have that pointed to the CNAME like you would normally do with Azure, with Azure. So either way works, and hopefully this works now. Okay. Yes.
Right.
So this is we actually give you sort of a getting started page. This is our just our default page we put on every site, and this just has instructions on how to actually deploy a site to this. So what we have now is we have an empty, we have a new folder on both these instances with a single index.html file, which is what we're seeing here.
Got it.
So now what we actually want to do is deploy a website to this application. So let's go web. Let's just do a regular ASP.NET web application.
And just to, maybe this is beating the point, but I've sort of seen people ask questions about this before. Like, this is a totally separate project. Like,
yes,
there's one thing that's what you deploy, and that's a Windows Azure app, and it's the Accelerator itself. Okay, and then every time you actually deploy a site or create a site, you're going to that admin thing, you're clicking a button, and then you're doing a brand new. This has nothing to do with Windows Azure.
Yep.
You could do this from a machine that didn't have the SDK installed. Like, I just want to make it
you
crystal clear. Like,
you could
this
do
part
it from Web Matrix.
Just a normal. Anything that can push via web deploy, you can use for this part, right? Because this is just the how do you push the content to the cloud part. And so it's separate. I don't because people keep asking this, so I just want to make sure people get it.
And like you could use web deploy. You could again, like you said, you could use it
web
without
matrix
web matrix. So.
Anything that does web deploy.
Yep. So yeah, that's a very good point to reiterate. So now what we have again, completely separate project. We're just going to publish this. And this is web deploy publish, not cloud publish, because we don't have a cloud project in here. Service URL, HTTP, WA webroles.cloudapp.net. So our site application name, there's been some confusion about this, and we probably need to do some rename of the fields, but our name of our site, not our host header, is actually the name we want to deploy to. So we want to deploy to test1. So test1. Uncheck this box, and this is our remote desktop username and password here. So
what happens if I forget to uncheck that? Why do I have to uncheck that? Because otherwise there's an index.html that stays there. Or?
Yes, and I can't remember. I think we actually fixed it. I know we have that bug either filed or fixed. We may have changed the order of like what file is default. I think maybe we made index.html the last one or something. So, but yeah, so basically to delete that, to clear out that one index file there, just uncheck that box, and click publish.
So now this is doing the normal web deploy, whatever, right? It's
published. Yep, that's a normal web deploy.
Put things into some package.
Let's go view our sites and see status. Okay, so this is actually perfect. This is what I wanted to show.
Yeah, this is the moment you wanted to catch, right?
So this here, you see web instance 1 has set to deployed. So what happened is that web deploy hit the Azure load balancer, and the load balancer sort of randomly chose instance 1. So that deploy actually happened to instance 1. And now our synchronizers that are happening in the background will pick up that deployment on instance 1, store it in blob storage, and then instance 0 or any other instances that are running will then pick up that package in blob storage and deploy to themselves. So if we refresh, takes about 30 seconds. Now we see that it was deployed to both sites. So yeah, took 24 seconds to get between both of those, and it would take. I think we have the synchronizer checking every 15 seconds or so. So it shouldn't take any more than 30 seconds to deploy to either 1 or 50 instances. It should be the same regardless of the number you have.
So the process, web deploy to some random instance. Then that instance notices there's sort of a new thing or whatever, and and takes a web deploy package of that, sticks it in a blob storage. Everybody else sees, oh, there's a new thing in blob storage, and just does the deploy again, right? So by the end, they've all done a web deploy of those bits to this site, and that's how the scale out works, and the sort of that's where the persistence is, because it's in blob storage. They're all using that same package now. Etc. So that's
that's a
cool.
Good. So
we can
see it now. So we use two things. We have tables and we have containers. Oh, we've got a few random things here, but sites is where we're going to have our site, and we probably have a whole bunch of stuff in here because so it does delete the old one. So test1 is our site, and what we have in here is our web deploy package, test1.zip, and additional versions will be stored in there also. So if you do another deploy, you'll get another package in there. So that's our web deploy package, all zipped up and handy. And then we've got our bindings and our websites in table storage as well. So, and this is what enables the persistence. So that same synchronization process that happens when you do an initial deploy will also happen if my role gets recycled, or if I redeploy the role on startup. It'll check, are there sites that I don't have, and then they'll deploy.
Or if you scale up, like a brand new instance, we'll also see the same stuff.
Yep. So now we have test1.ntauten.com, refresh.
We should have a sort of default template from
And
ASP.NET.
yep, that's that. So.
Right, and so the idea here is now, right, I mean, I could go create a bunch of sites on different hosts and with different host headers and whatever, go deploy them all. They'd all go to the same role, same set of instances, same set of VMs, all shared, and it's all persisted so that you don't have to worry about an OS patch comes and you lost some whatever. This is like a legitimate, it can scale out and persist the things that you want out of there.
Yep.
I think the only other, one thing to mention, I'm trying to think of when people don't want to do something like this, and one thing that I've thought of in doing the Smarks role and other things like that too is that these things all end up sort of doing an end run around the update model, the rolling updates that happen in Windows Azure.
Yep.
Which means like if you go right-click publish and you do, it's going to happen to one instance a little bit ahead of the other ones, but basically it's going to happen to all of them at roughly the same time, and that's always sort of, it means you can't do the sort of rolling thing like update domain by update domain or whatever. And so there's certain things that this is sort of more like slamming bits directly onto your production machine. You could always use sort of staging in production to do something, but even that is sort of tough because you have to manage all the host headers. So I think the one place where you might not want to do this is for where you really need sort of the upgrade cycle that you get from just using a web role by itself. But for quickly deploying new sites and whatever, it has a bunch of advantages.
And really that problem isn't necessarily like, say you're only deploying a design change to your website. Like, really, it's like you deploy and it hits one, so there'll be a 30-second window where basically, depending on which instance they hit, maybe they get a different CSS file or a different design. So in a lot of scenarios, that's not going to be a problem. In some, there are certain sites that you would absolutely want to have the benefits of that rolling upgrade on Azure. So And then we've got a few other things in here I'll just mention real quick. Again, we mentioned a little bit earlier you can upload a certificate. And then we also give you this basic logging, which is just sort of an interface around some logging we have for the synchronization, like when different packages are synchronized, what's happening, when things are deleted. So this is a really basic logging, and there's a bunch of interfaces and classes in there where you could actually go and extend this. I think this is something that definitely could be extended to provide a little richer logging scenario, even like the health of different roles and things like that.
Right.
So, but and again, like I said, all the source code's available on CodePlex. You can either download the full package or just download the source and get started.
Right, and if I download the full package, so if the full package is like an already made CSPKG and CSCFG, or
the full packages is an installer that adds that template. We don't yet actually have the
sort of a pre-can.
Yeah, we don't have
that's
the pre-can.
hard to do, right? Because you have to do the remote desktop credentials and whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of, you might think like, well, can I just deploy, since I'm not touching any of that code, like why do I need a template and why do I need Visual Studio at all to get the first, like can't I just deploy the package and then just do a web deploy? And my guess is it's the difficulty of getting all the config settings right with remote desktop, and because you need the certificate and you need, and so but that would be kind of cool. All right, version 2.
Yeah, it's something that would be nice if we had like a config where you could just upload it and be ready to go without. So then really the nice thing about that is you could use it if you only had Web Matrix. Like you could just upload that package and then set some config settings, deploy it, and then use Web Matrix to deploy. So but maybe we'll get there hopefully.
Cool. All right. Well, I feel like it's that time of the show. We're ready to introduce the tip of the week, and we have a very special, very introduction nice. for this tip of the week, which is so at the end of last week's show, we sort of teased that we would talk about building a custom workbench, and we showed from YouTube, we showed a video of Wade's dad doing some sort of do-it-yourself, build a workbench, cabinets. I don't know what he's doing. There's saws involved and stuff. It went over my head.
Clearly, stuff as software engineers,
I didn't understand.
nothing
Yeah,
about.
I was just like, yeah, there was like physical stuff you had to put together. I didn't get that. So anyway, Wade's dad has responded by publishing to his YouTube account a video of Wade, a movie that Wade made at, I think he was like 22, 23 when he made this.
Early 20s.
It was, so it was a little while ago.
A couple years ago.
But he made, that's probably all we need to say about it. But this is Wade. This is from the creative mind of Wade. Here's your tip of the week.
Mr. 8, you wouldn't lie to me now, would you? No.
And we're back from
I just wanted to. I know you're going to use that as the main screen.
That was lovely. I really like that. No, that's going to be the thumbnail for this week's episode of Cloud Cover.
Actually, should I stand here the whole time while you're doing the tip of the week?
Yeah, just keep doing that the whole time. Okay.
Thank you. That will be all.
It's still not as funny as what everyone just saw, though, in the tip of the week intro.
No, oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Which, with the little guy doing this thing, I hope we have that part.
There's no way I can even explain. I watched it yesterday, and I don't know. There are no words.
Right. Yeah. That's well said. So with that, our tip is brought to you by a question from Stack Overflow, which I answered, I think, this morning. I don't really remember when
a very good answer.
Couple hours ago. We'll vote it up. Click on it. There you go. Now it's the best answer so far. The question was, how can I use local storage from a startup task? So the local storage that you declare in your service definition, and you say, I need 100 megabytes called whatever. If you've played around and gone onto the VM and looked around, you know this ends up being in C:\/resources \directories some ridiculous. It's like the deployment ID or something dot the name of the thing. Anyway, without hard coding that and trying to find it, the question was, so how do you use that from a startup task where you're usually writing a batch file or something? If you're writing .NET code in your startup task, you can just call role environment get local resource whatever, just like you do in any other part of the code. But I think really the question was, well, I'm not doing that. I'm just writing batch files. Is it in an environment variable or something? How can I get at that stuff? So I gave an answer that I've been using. This is actual code from some of my -1. Thanks. I didn't even notice. That was really smooth.
I did it while
So this is code. This is actual code that I use in the Smarks role and some other stuff. So you can find it there. But this is, I have a 3-line PowerShell script, which basically is just, instead of having to write C# and compile it an executable, this is a PowerShell script that takes one argument and writes out one line, and it's just the path. Okay, and so I wrote that PowerShell script, and then I used my batch file foo to that's like kung fu but for batch files to do a for loop that gets it, which is bizarre, but if you write batch files a lot, you'll do stuff like this. But basically, that first line, PowerShell set execution policy unrestricted, is to make sure PowerShell will actually run this PowerShell script even though it's not signed and whatever. And then the second line says loop over the output of this command. So it runs PowerShell whatever, and then for each line it runs this code, which just sets an environment variable to that value. And there's only one line of output, so it's a loop that executes exactly once. But that's why it looks weird. That's why it's a for loop, but what it's doing is it's executing that line and then coming out. And I actually thought those were supposed to be backticks, not single quotes. And
well,
so I wonder if
downloaded it.
if I got it wrong. Yeah, because it was wrong. I don't actually know. That may have been sort of copy pasting changes. That may have been the sort of markdown of Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
I'll have to check. So I'm going to put up a blog post that has the same stuff in it. We'll put it in the links, and I'll get it right there for sure, so that you can copy paste and be safe. But that's it. So it's pretty straightforward. Just drop sort of that PowerShell script in with the rest of your startup tasks, and then when you need to use you need to know that path. You just do this little for loop thing, and you get it. Or you can write your startup tasks in .NET or in a .NET language, or you can write an executable that does that part. Whatever it is that you want to do is fine. But that's one thing you can do.
Very cool.
All right, so that was our tip, and that was our show. If you would like to see more of Wade's video, it's on YouTube, so we should be able to dig up the link.
I think we're going to probably put it as an additional resource.
It's a 7-minute video. I don't know how long. I don't know what clip Bob's going to put in there so I don't know how much you saw, but there's a full 7 minutes of pretty much stuff like that. So well worth watching.
Yeah.
So we'll get that link in the notes, and feel free to give feedback on that to Wade. And as always, if you have stuff that you want to see on the show, or if you just want to harass us, you can go on to the Twitters and tweet us at CloudCoverShow. Thanks for showing us this cool wow.
Yeah. Maybe next time I'll have something
that's not related to rapid deployment of
Yeah.
multiple websites.
Yeah.
That would be good. Don't
might.
be a one-trick pony, Nate. Okay, well, until next time, thanks.
Thank you.